The billionaire's daughter stood on the penthouse ledge, 42 stories above Manhattan, while armed men stormed through the door, and the only person who could save her was the waitress who'd been fired that morning for inappropriate contact with the child. Welcome to Stories by Jason. If you're settled in and ready for a good story, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I've got another exciting story coming your way tomorrow, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for the love and support. You're truly appreciated, and I'm so grateful to have you here with me. Norah Kingsley's phone shattered the 3 a.m. silence with a ringtone she'd programmed specifically for emergencies. Lily's favorite piano melody, distorted into something urgent and wrong. Get here now. Arthur Penhaligon's voice was ice over volcanic rage, and pray you have an explanation. The line went dead. Nora's hands trembled as she threw on clothes, her mind racing through every worst-case scenario. In the 6 months since that first day at Aurelio's restaurant, when she'd intervened during Lily's meltdown and somehow become indispensable to Manhattan's most ruthless billionaire, she'd learned to read Arthur's moods like weather patterns. This wasn't anger. This was detonation. The taxi couldn't move fast enough through empty pre-dawn streets. Norah had been Lily's official companion for 4 months now, living in the guest wing of the Penhaligon penthouse, earning more in a week than she'd made in a year waiting tables. She'd helped Lily navigate sensory challenges, communicate her needs, find joy in a world that felt too loud and too bright. The 8-year-old had started calling her Norah Safe, then just Norah, and recently, in whispered moments, something that sounded dangerously close to Mama. Isabella Thornbridge hated every second of it. Arthur's fiancée had made her contempt crystal clear from day one. The lingering looks of disgust, the pointed comments about the help at family dinners, the way she'd torched Norah's suggestions in meetings with Arthur's therapists and educational consultants. But Isabella was brilliant at maintaining appearances, elegant, poised, the perfect society match for a widowed billionaire raising a difficult child. Norah had learned to be invisible around her. The Apex Tower's lobby was chaos masked as controlled emergency. Security personnel spoke in clipped tones. Arthur's assistant, Thomas, looked like he'd aged 10 years, his normally perfect composure shattered. "Miss Kingsley," his voice cracked, "you need to go up immediately. Mr. Penhaligon he's not well." The private elevator felt like a descent into hell, even as it climbed 68 floors. The penthouse doors opened to reveal a crime scene that wasn't officially a crime scene yet. Arthur stood in Lily's doorway, his $10,000 suit rumpled, his legendary control fractured into something raw and terrifying. Marcus Chen, head of security, was documenting everything with cold precision. And Isabella sat on the white leather sofa, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face, one hand clutching Arthur's arm with desperate, performative grief. "Where is my daughter?" Arthur's voice could have cut diamond. Norah's stomach dropped. "What do you mean? I put her to bed at 8:30. She was calm, happy. We read 3 chapters of her ocean book. She had her weighted blanket, her white noise machine was." "She's gone." Isabella's voice broke beautifully, accusingly. "When I came to check on her at midnight, the bed was empty. The window," her breath hitched, "the window was open." Norah pushed past Arthur into Lily's room and felt her world tilt. The space was wrong. Lily's carefully organized environment, every item placed specifically to minimize stress, had been violated. The window was indeed open, cold November air streaming in. The weighted blanket lay in a heap. Lily's tablet, which she never went anywhere without, sat abandoned on the nightstand. And worst of all, her comfort object, a small cloth napkin Norah had folded into a tent that first day at Aurelio's, was missing. "No," Norah's voice was steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. "No, this is wrong. Lily wouldn't leave her tablet. She wouldn't open that window. She hates the noise from the street. This doesn't make sense." "What doesn't make sense," Marcus said quietly, appearing at her shoulder with a tablet of his own, "is this." He turned the screen toward her. Security footage showed Norah entering Lily's room at 8:30 p.m., reading with her, tucking her in. Then the timestamp jumped. 11:47 p.m., Norah entering again, bending over the bed, the camera angle obscuring exactly what she was doing. 11 minutes later, Norah exiting, carrying something bulky wrapped in the weighted blanket. Norah felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. "That's not me," she whispered. "I was asleep in my room. I would never." "Your keycard accessed her door at 11:47, Marcus continued, his tone almost apologetic. "Your biometric scan confirmed it. You're wearing the same clothes as in the evening footage." "Someone faked it. Someone copied my card, or..." Norah looked desperately at Arthur, whose face had become a mask of granite. Arthur, please, you know me. You know I love Lily. I would die before I hurt her. Would you? Isabella rose from the sofa, her tears drying with suspicious speed. Because I've been warning Arthur for months that your attachment to Lily was unhealthy, obsessive even. You have no formal training, no credentials. You're a waitress who got lucky once. And now my beautiful girl is, her voice broke again, this time with what sounded like genuine anguish. God knows where. Isabella, please, Thomas interjected weakly. Let's not. Let's not what? Acknowledge that Arthur brought a stranger into our home, gave her unlimited access to a vulnerable child, ignored every warning sign because she made Lily smile. Isabella turned to Arthur, her hand finding his cheek in a gesture of intimate concern. Darling, I know you want to believe the best in people. It's one of the things I love about you. But look at the evidence. Look at what she's done. Marcus cleared his throat. Sir, I need to ask Miss Kingsley some questions, formally. I'll answer anything, Norah said immediately. But we're wasting time. Every minute we stand here talking, Lily is out there, scared and alone. She can't regulate her sensory input without help. She doesn't understand danger the way. Enough. Arthur's single word was a guillotine. Marcus, take her to the study. Get answers. Thomas, call the police. Tell them. His jaw worked. Tell them my daughter is missing and we have a suspect in custody. Arthur, no. Norah reached for him and 3 security guards materialized, blocking her path. Please, listen to me. This is exactly what someone wants, for you to waste time suspecting me while they... While they what? Isabella's eyes glittered with something that might have been triumph. While some mysterious phantom kidnapper escapes. How convenient, how utterly predictable. She moved closer to Norah, her voice dropping to a whisper only Norah could hear. You actually thought you belonged here, that you could play house with my family. Pathetic. The words hit like a physical blow, but what froze Norah's blood was the tiny, satisfied smile playing at the corner of Isabella's mouth. Not grief, not fear for Lily. Satisfaction. And in that crystalline moment of horror, Norah understood. Isabella had done this. Somehow, impossibly, she had taken Lily. The footage was fabricated, the timeline manipulated, the whole scene staged to destroy Norah while removing the one obstacle to Isabella's complete control of Arthur's life and fortune. But why take Lily? What could possibly? Miss Kingsley, Marcus's hand was firm but not rough on her arm. Please come with me. As they led her away from Lily's violated sanctuary, Norah's mind raced through everything she knew about Isabella. The woman had appeared in Arthur's life 18 months ago at a charity gala. She had impeccable credentials, old Boston money, Wellesley education, a portfolio of philanthropic work. She'd courted Arthur with the patience of a chess master, never pushing, always supporting, positioning herself as the solution to his loneliness and Lily's needs. But she'd never actually connected with Lily, never once demonstrated genuine understanding or affection for the child. She'd been performing the role of caring stepmother-to-be, while her eyes remained cold, calculating. Norah had chalked it up to personality differences, to the challenge some people had relating to neurodivergent children. She'd never imagined. In here, Marcus guided her into Arthur's study, a cathedral of leather and mahogany and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Dawn was beginning to break. Pink light bleeding across the darkness. Somewhere in this city, Lily was terrified, probably nonverbal with stress, definitely in sensory overload, and everyone was looking in exactly the wrong direction. Marcus, Norah said quietly as he closed the door, how long have you worked for Arthur? 12 years. Do you have children? His expression flickered. A daughter 10 years old. Then you understand. Norah turned to face him fully. You understand that what I'm about to say isn't the desperate deflection of a guilty person. It's the truth from someone who loves that little girl more than her own life. Marcus said nothing, but he was listening. I didn't take Lily, but someone did, and they went to extraordinary lengths to make it look like I did. That footage is falsified. I don't know how, but I know it is. My keycard was either cloned or the access logs were altered. And the person who has the resources, the motivation, and the ice-cold calculation to pull this off is standing in that living room right now, crying crocodile tears while Arthur's daughter suffers. That's a serious accusation against Miss Thornbridge. I know, Norah's voice was steady, and I can't prove it, not yet, but I can tell you this. Lily is somewhere unfamiliar and terrifying. She's shutting down, and every minute we waste questioning me is a minute closer to something terrible happening to her. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he did something that changed everything. He locked the study door from the inside and turned off the security camera with a small remote from his pocket. Talk fast, he said quietly, and convince me. 3 months ago, Norah began, her words tumbling out in urgent precision. I found Isabella in Lily's room at 2 a.m. She said she was checking on her, but Lily was clearly distressed. Not just awake, rocking, nonverbal, in full meltdown mode. I asked Isabella what had happened, and she said Lily must have had a nightmare. That's not unusual for her. Lily doesn't have nightmares. Her sleep disruptions are sensory-based, not psychological, and when I calmed her down and asked what was wrong, she kept signing the same thing over and over. Norah demonstrated the gesture. Scary lady made loud. Marcus's expression shifted minutely. Did you report this? To Arthur, yes. He spoke to Isabella, who explained that she'd accidentally knocked over Lily's white noise machine while checking on her. Plausible, reasonable. And Arthur was so grateful that Isabella was trying to bond with Lily that he overlooked the fact that she'd never checked on Lily before that night. Norah's hands clenched. I let it go. I thought maybe I was being territorial or misreading the situation. I didn't want to seem like I was sabotaging Arthur's relationship. What else? 2 weeks after that, someone changed Lily's dietary restrictions in the household system. Added almonds back to her approved foods. Lily is severely allergic, anaphylaxis level. The chef caught it before serving her anything, but when we investigated, the change had been made from Isabella's account. Norah paced the study, her mind assembling pieces she'd been too close to see clearly. Isabella claimed she'd been researching exposure therapy for food allergies and must have accidentally updated the wrong file while taking notes. Another perfect explanation. Marcus was typing something on his phone, his expression unreadable. Then last month, the incident with the medication. Lily takes a very specific dose of melatonin to help with sleep regulation. Someone replaced her prescription with pills that were 3 times the dosage. Arthur's pharmacist caught the error when they delivered the refill, but the original order had been placed through Isabella's account at the family pharmacy. Norah's voice hardened. At what point do mistakes become a pattern? Did Mr. Penhalagon take action? He confronted Isabella. She was horrified, tearful, promised to be more careful. She even suggested that maybe the stress of wedding planning was affecting her judgment, and perhaps they should postpone the wedding until after she'd seen a therapist. Norah laughed bitterly. Brilliant move. She positioned herself as self-aware and caring while simultaneously making Arthur feel guilty for doubting her. Marcus looked up from his phone. You said you can't prove the footage is falsified, but if I could get you into the security control room, could you identify what might have been altered? Hope flared in Norah's chest. You believe me? I believe, Marcus said carefully, that in 12 years of working for Arthur Penhalagon, I've watched him survive 3 hostile takeover attempts, a blackmail scheme, and 2 assassination threats by trusting his instincts about people. He trusted you with his daughter. That means something. He paused. It also means that if you're lying to me, I will personally ensure you never see daylight again. Fair enough. Marcus unlocked his phone and turned it toward her. On the screen was a background check, not the standard employment screening Norah had undergone when she was hired, but something far deeper. Financial records, social media histories, forensic accounting. The subject was Isabella Thornbridge. I've been running this for 6 weeks, Marcus admitted quietly. Since the medication incident, Mr. Penhalagon ordered me to stand down, but I kept digging on my own time. He scrolled through pages of data. Her backstory checks out on the surface. Boston Society family, trust fund, charity work. But when you go deeper, the timeline gets fuzzy. There's a gap of 18 months between her graduating from Wellesley and her first appearance in Boston social circles. No employment records, no travel records, nothing. People take gap years. Not people from families like the Thornbridges, and not without leaving any digital footprint whatsoever. Marcus pulled up another screen. Then there's this. 3 weeks ago, a wire transfer of $500,000 from one of Mr. Penhalagon's subsidiary accounts to an LLC registered in Delaware. The authorization came from Isabella's laptop. Norah felt her pulse hammering. She's stealing from him. The transfer was reversed within 24 hours, flagged as a test transaction that was accidentally executed. But the LLC, Marcus zoomed in on the corporate registration. It exists only on paper. No business activity, no assets, no employees. Just a shell company established 6 months before Isabella met Mr. Penhalagon. To launder money. That would be my guess. Marcus pocketed his phone. But none of this helps us find Lily in the next. He checked his watch. 4 hours before the police officially designate you a suspect and issue a warrant. Then we need to figure out where Isabella would take her. Somewhere she has access to, somewhere Arthur wouldn't think to look, somewhere she could. Norah's blood went cold. Oh God. What? She's not just kidnapping Lily, she's planning to kill her. Marcus went very still. Explain. Think about it. Arthur's fortune is structured in trusts, with Lily as the primary beneficiary. If something happens to Arthur, Lily inherits everything, but she'd need a guardian to manage it. Currently, that's designated as Arthur's sister in California, who Isabella has never even met. Nora's thoughts raced ahead, connecting dots into a horrifying picture. But if Isabella is married to Arthur and if Lily is gone, then Isabella becomes the grieving stepmother and widow. She'd have access to everything. You're suggesting she plans to kill them both. I'm suggesting she's already planned it. And this, Norah gestured at the empty bedroom down the hall, is step one. Make me look guilty of taking Lily. Create chaos and confusion. Then, in the midst of the investigation, a tragic accident happens to Arthur. He's distraught over his missing daughter. Maybe he has a heart attack. Maybe he falls from his penthouse terrace in a moment of despair. And Lily is found dead somewhere, with evidence pointing back to you as the kidnapper who killed her when your plan went wrong. Marcus finished the thought, his voice hollow. It's elegant, horrifying but elegant. We have to warn Arthur. He won't believe us, not yet. Right now he's convinced you're responsible. Marcus moved toward the door, then stopped. But there's one person who might listen. Who? Me? He unlocked the door and stepped into the hallway, leaving Norah in the study. She heard low, urgent conversation. Then Marcus returned with someone unexpected. Thomas, Arthur's assistant, looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. Thomas has been with the family even longer than I have, Marcus said, and he's noticed some things about Miss Thornbridge that concerned him. Thomas wrung his hands nervously. I didn't want to speak out of turn. It's not my place to judge Mr. Penhaligon's personal relationships. But when Marcus told me about his investigation, I realized I needed to share what I'd observed. Tell her about the phone calls, Marcus prompted. Miss Thornbridge makes a lot of calls from the penthouse, which is normal. But she always leaves the room to do it, and she speaks in a language I don't recognize. Not French or Spanish or Italian, something Eastern European, perhaps Russian or Ukrainian. And the calls always come at odd hours. 2 a.m., 4 a.m. when she thinks everyone is asleep. Norah's mind flashed to the night she'd found Isabella in Lily's room. 2 a.m. 2 weeks ago, Thomas continued, I was working late in Mr. Penhaligon's home office when I heard her in the hallway having one of these calls. She sounded different. Not the cultured, gentle voice she uses with Mr. Penhaligon. Harder, colder, and she laughed, really laughed in a way I'd never heard before. It chilled me. Did you understand anything she said? Just one phrase that she repeated several times. It sounded like skoro konets. I looked it up later. It's Russian for soon it ends. The three of them stood in silence, the weight of the revelation settling over them. We need access to that security footage, Norah said finally. If it's been altered, there will be traces, inconsistencies in the timestamp metadata, digital artifacts in the video. I can get you into the control room, Marcus said, but you'll have maybe 10 minutes before someone notices. Then we also need someone looking into Isabella's background, real background, not the polished resume she presented. Norah turned to Thomas. Can you access Arthur's private files, the due diligence reports from when he first started dating her? Thomas hesitated. That would be violating his privacy. His daughter's life is at stake. Then yes, I'll do it. They were developing a plan, fragile and desperate, but a plan nonetheless, when Norah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Looking for the little bird, she's singing so sweetly, but birds don't sing forever in cages. You have 12 hours to confess to the police or she takes her last flight. Come alone to the confession or she falls. Tell anyone she falls. Try to find her she falls. Clock's ticking, Waitress. Below the text was a photo that made Norah's heart stop. Lily, her eyes wide with terror, sitting in what looked like a concrete room, her hands clutching that small cloth napkin, the only comfort item in a nightmare. She's alive, Norah whispered, showing the phone to Marcus and Thomas, and she's absolutely terrified. Marcus was already tracing the message. Burner phone, probably, but the photo metadata might tell us. He stopped, his expression going dark. The photo was taken 17 minutes ago. Wherever she is, she's still in the city. The cell tower ping puts the phone in lower Manhattan. Industrial area, probably the waterfront. That narrows it down to about 50 square blocks of warehouses and shipping facilities, Thomas said bleakly. Then we'd better start looking. Norah headed for the door. Wait, Marcus grabbed her arm. You can't just leave. Arthur thinks you're a suspect. You walk out of here, you'll have every cop in Manhattan looking for you. Then I'd better move fast. Norah, Marcus's voice was urgent. If you run, you prove his suspicions right. You destroy any chance of clearing your name. And if something happens to Lily while you're on the run, you'll be charged with her murder. If I stay here answering questions while Isabella's 12-hour clock runs down, Lily dies anyway. Norah met his eyes. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm burning every bridge, destroying every possibility of a normal life after this. But that little girl is alone and terrified, and I'm the only person who understands what she needs right now. Not the police, not search and rescue, not even Arthur, me. She thought of Lily on that first day at Aurelio's, overwhelmed by sensory input until Norah had folded that napkin into a small tent, a tiny, safe space in a chaotic world. She thought of the trust in those wide eyes when Lily had reached for her hand. The whispered Norah safe in the darkness of bedtime routines. The way Lily had started to emerge from her shell, bit by careful bit, because someone finally understood. I'm going, Norah said quietly. You can help me or stop me, but I'm going. Marcus and Thomas exchanged a long look. Then Marcus did something that would probably cost him his job. He handed Norah a keycard and a small device that looked like a phone. This is a spare security override card for the private elevator. It'll get you out of the building without triggering alerts. And this, he indicated the device, is linked to our security system. I'm giving you read-only access to all camera feeds, including the external building cameras. If anyone is watching for you, you'll see them first. Why are you helping me? Because I have a daughter, Marcus said simply. And if she were missing, I'd want someone who loved her fighting to find her. He paused. Also, Isabella Thornbridge walked past Lily's empty bedroom 20 minutes ago and smiled. Just a little smile like she'd won something. I've been trained to read microexpressions. That wasn't relief or grief or shock. That was satisfaction. I saw it too, Thomas whispered. God help me, I saw it and said nothing. Then help me now, Norah said. Find out who she really is. Tear apart every piece of her background. And when I find Lily, not if, when, make sure Arthur knows the truth before Isabella can spin another lie. She was at the study door when Thomas called out. Miss Kingsley, Norah, his voice was thick with emotion. Bring our girl home. Our girl, not Arthur's daughter, not the billionaire's problem child, but our girl, claimed and loved and worth fighting for. I will, Norah promised, or I'll die trying. She slipped into the hallway, using the security feed device to track patrol patterns. The penthouse was enormous, and in the chaos of the missing child investigation, no one was watching the service corridors as carefully as they should have been. She made it to the private elevator without being seen. As the doors closed and the car began its descent, Norah pulled up the photo of Lily again, studying every detail. Concrete walls, fluorescent lighting, a metal chair bolted to the floor, industrial setting, probably abandoned or rarely used, the kind of place where screams wouldn't be heard. But there was something else in the photo, partially visible in the background, a faded logo on the wall. She zoomed in, trying to make out the letters. ARTIME storage. Maritime, Lower Manhattan waterfront, industrial shipping area. Norah's fingers flew over the device, pulling up maps of the dock district. Dozens of warehouses, many abandoned since shipping operations had moved to New Jersey ports. Finding one specific building in that maze would take. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, another text. Smart girl, I knew you'd run. Now Arthur will never believe anything you say. You're not saving her, you're proving my case. But please keep going, makes this so much more entertaining. M. M for Maggie, Margaret, or was it just a taunt? The elevator opened onto the executive parking garage. Norah had no car, no money except the $43 in her wallet, and no allies except two men who were risking everything to give her a chance. But she had something Isabella hadn't counted on. She understood Lily. She knew how the child would react to captivity, what she'd focus on, how she'd try to self-regulate. And if there was any way Lily could leave clues, any way at all, Norah would find them. She stepped into the cold November morning and started running toward the waterfront, toward the industrial maze where a terrified 8-year-old waited in the dark. Behind her, in the Apex Tower penthouse, Arthur Penhalagon stared at his daughter's empty bedroom and made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He called the police and named Norah Kingsley as the primary suspect in his daughter's disappearance. And Isabella Thornbridge, soon to be revealed as Maggie O'Connell, smiled that small, satisfied smile and began planning the final act of her carefully orchestrated revenge. The clock was ticking. Lily was running out of time. And the only person who could save her had just become the city's most wanted fugitive. The waterfront warehouse district looked like the skeleton of another era, Rusted shipping containers stacked like forgotten monuments, buildings with windows dark as dead eyes, streets that even the morning sun couldn't fully illuminate. Norah moved through the industrial maze, every sense heightened, the security device in her pocket her only advantage. She'd been searching for 90 minutes, checking 7 abandoned warehouses. Each one a nightmare of echoing spaces and rats, and the persistent certainty that she was being watched. The device showed her position as a blue dot on a grid, but it couldn't tell her which of these decaying structures held Lily. Then she saw it, a partially collapsed sign reading Maritime Storage and Logistics, the same faded letters from the photo's background. The building was 4 stories of industrial decay, its loading dock doors chained shut, its windows either broken or covered with grime so thick it was opaque. But there was something wrong about it, or rather, something too right. The chains on the doors were new, thick, and oiled. There were tire tracks in the dirt leading to a side entrance, recent enough that they hadn't been washed away by last night's rain. Someone was using this building. Norah circled the perimeter, using the security device to scan for cameras. Nothing obvious, but that didn't mean they weren't there. Isabella, or whoever was helping her, had already demonstrated sophistication with surveillance technology. The side entrance had a new lock, but the doorframe was rotted enough that 3 hard kicks splintered the wood. Norah pushed inside, into darkness that smelled of rust and old concrete and something else, something chemical and wrong. "Lily," she kept her voice low, letting her eyes adjust. "Baby, it's Norah, can you hear me?" Silence, but not empty silence, the weighted quiet of a space holding its breath. Norah moved deeper into the building, past ancient shipping equipment and stacks of mildewed boxes. The floor was concrete, her footsteps echoing despite her efforts at stealth. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every sound could be a scrape, metal on concrete, somewhere above her. Norah found a stairwell, its metal steps corroded but still functional. She climbed toward the sound, her heart hammering so hard she was sure it would give her away. Second floor, empty. Third floor, more abandoned equipment but also newer items. A folding table, battery-powered lanterns. Someone had been staging supplies. Fourth floor. She saw the room from the photo. The door was heavy steel, newer than the rest of the building, with a keypad lock that glowed green in the dimness. And through the small window reinforced with wire mesh, Norah could see her. "Lily." The little girl sat in the metal chair, exactly as she'd appeared in the photo, clutching that napkin, her eyes unfocused in the way that meant she'd gone somewhere deep inside herself to escape the overwhelming horror of her situation. "Lily," Norah pressed against the door, trying the handle uselessly. "Lily, honey, look at me." The child didn't respond. She was rocking slightly, a self-soothing motion, her lips moving in what might have been counting or might have been nothing at all. Norah's hands flew over the keypad, trying obvious combinations. Lily's birthday, Arthur's, nothing worked. She could break the window, but the wire mesh was industrial grade, and even if she got through it, the opening was too small to pull Lily out. She needed to get that door open, needed. "I was wondering how long it would take you." Norah spun. Isabella Thornbridge. No, Maggie O'Connell, she was done with the pretense, stood at the top of the stairs. But this wasn't the elegant society woman from the penthouse. This woman wore jeans and a black jacket, her hair pulled back severely, her expression stripped of any warmth or pretense. And she was holding a gun. "You're smarter than I expected," Maggie said conversationally, as if they were discussing the weather. "Most people would have stayed in the penthouse, protested their innocence, let the legal system play out. But not you, you had to be the hero." "Let her go." Norah positioned herself between Maggie and the door, even though she knew it was futile. "Whatever this is about, she's an innocent child." "Innocent?" Maggie laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "She's a Penhaligon, she's as guilty as her father. She's 8 years old. She's also worth $2.3 billion in trust funds and inheritance rights." Maggie moved closer, the gun steady in her hand. Professional grip, professional stance. This wasn't someone who'd picked up a weapon yesterday. "Do you have any idea how long I've been planning this? 2 years of research, 18 months of becoming Isabella Thornbridge, 6 months of convincing Arthur I was his soulmate. And then you," her voice sharpened with genuine anger. "You with your sad eyes and your magic touch with his broken daughter, you almost ruined everything. So this is about money. This is about justice." Maggie's face twisted with old rage. "Arthur Penhaligon destroyed my family. 12 years ago his company acquired my father's business, a 4th-generation pharmaceutical manufacturer. My father built that company from nothing. It was our family legacy. And Arthur's lawyers found a loophole in the acquisition contract, exploited a technicality, and took everything. The company, the patents, the retirement funds of 200 employees. Norah's mind raced, trying to remember. The Barrett Pharmaceuticals case. I read about it during Arthur's background check. Then you know my father killed himself 6 months after losing everything. And my mother followed him a year later, cancer that could have been treated, except we had no money for the experimental drugs that might have saved her. Drugs that Arthur's company now manufactures and sells for $10,000 a dose. Maggie's hand tightened on the gun. So yes, this is about money. His money, which should have been ours. Killing his daughter won't bring your parents back. No, but taking everything he loves, making him suffer the way my family suffered, watching him lose piece by piece until there's nothing left. Maggie smiled, and it was the coldest thing Norah had ever seen. That might come close. Behind the door, Lily had started making a sound, a low, keening hum that Norah recognized as extreme distress. The child was approaching meltdown, her coping mechanisms failing. She's scared, Norah said urgently. She doesn't understand what's happening. Please, whatever you're planning to do to me, do it, but let me calm her down first. Just 5 minutes. Why would I do that? Because you're not a monster. Your parents were good people who were wronged. They wouldn't want you to traumatize an innocent child. Maggie studied her for a long moment. Then she laughed, genuine amusement lighting her face. You really believe that, don't you? You think there's still good in me, still some moral line I won't cross? She shook her head. I crossed that line the day I watched my father hang himself in our garage. Everything after that has been very, very easy. She raised the gun, pointing it directly at Norah's chest. Here's what's going to happen. In 30 minutes, Arthur will receive a video call from this location. He'll see his daughter tied to that chair, terrified and alone. And he'll see you, she gestured with the gun, standing over her with a knife in your hand. He'll hear you making demands, threatening to hurt her if he doesn't wire money to an offshore account. And then, tragically, the police will storm this location. There will be gunfire. You'll be killed. And so will Lily, caught in the crossfire. No one will believe that. They'll have video evidence. They'll have the testimony of Arthur's head of security. Oh yes, Marcus Chen works for me now, has for 6 months, confirming your suspicious behavior. They'll have your fingerprints all over this room, your DNA on Lily's clothes. And they'll have a devastated father who watched his daughter die because he trusted the wrong person. The betrayal hit Norah like a physical blow. Marcus had seemed so sincere, so helpful. The security override card, the access to camera feeds, all of it designed to help her incriminate herself, to lead her exactly where Maggie wanted her. And Arthur, Norah asked, playing for time, her mind desperately searching for any advantage. What happens to him? Grief-stricken widower, will have married by then, quick ceremony because he was so desperate for comfort, who tragically takes his own life 6 months later. Depression, they'll say, couldn't recover from losing his daughter, and I'll inherit everything as his widow. No messy courts, no suspicious siblings, just a sad story that gets forgotten in a year. Maggie checked her watch. We're recording in 20 minutes. I suggest you spend that time making peace with. The explosion came from below, a concussive boom that shook the entire building. Maggie stumbled, her gun hand wavering. Norah didn't think she lunged, catching Maggie's wrist and slamming it against the rusted railing. The gun clattered away, sliding across the concrete floor. They fought with desperate fury, Maggie stronger but Norah faster, both of them knowing that this moment would determine everything. Norah managed to land a punch that split Maggie's lip, but Maggie responded with a kick that sent Norah sprawling. Behind the steel door, Lily's humming had risen to a scream. Maggie reached the gun first, swinging it toward Norah. And Marcus Chen appeared at the top of the stairs, his own weapon drawn, his face grim and focused. Step away from her, Isabella, or Maggie, or whoever the hell you are. Maggie froze, then slowly smiled. I was wondering when you'd show up. Did you enjoy your little redemption arc, pretending to help the waitress while you set her up? The only thing I set up, Marcus said coldly, was that explosion downstairs. Police will be here in 4 minutes. You can surrender, or you can make this harder than it needs to be. You think you're the hero? Maggie's gun was still pointed at Norah, her finger on the trigger. You've been taking my money for 6 months. You helped me get access to Arthur's security systems. You're complicit in all of this. I was gathering evidence, Marcus corrected. Every payment you made, every instruction you gave, every corner we cut, all documented and forwarded to the FBI. You're not just facing kidnapping charges, Maggie. You're looking at wire fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other federal crimes. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Maggie's face. Your real name is Margaret O'Connell. Marcus continued, moving slowly to the side, creating a crossfire angle. Your father was CEO of Barrett Pharmaceuticals. You disappeared 18 months ago after embezzling $3.2 million from a Boston investment firm where you worked under a false identity. You've got warrants in 3 states. Interpol is looking for you in connection with fraud in London. And this is my favorite part. You're already married. To a software engineer in Seattle, who reported you missing 9 months ago. None of that matters if you're dead. Maggie's voice had gone flat, emotionless. All of you. The building is rigged. If I don't enter a code in, she glanced at her watch, 90 seconds this entire floor explodes. Everyone dies, including the precious little girl. You're bluffing, Norah said, but her certainty wavered. Am I? Maggie backed toward the stairwell, her gun swinging between Norah and Marcus. I've spent 2 years on this. You think I didn't plan for contingencies? The code is in my head, nowhere else. You can shoot me, but then you'll never get it. You can chase me, but then you don't have time to evacuate. Your choice. She was at the stairs now, starting to descend. Marcus made his choice. He fired. But Maggie had anticipated it, ducking below the railing as the bullet sparked off metal. She returned fire, forcing Marcus behind cover, and then she was gone, her footsteps echoing down the stairwell. Get Lily, Marcus shouted at Norah. I'll get the code. He ran after Maggie, leaving Norah alone with a locked steel door, no tools, and a timer counting down to catastrophe. 70 seconds. Norah ran to the keypad, her hands shaking. Think. Maggie was methodical, precise. The code would be something meaningful to her, something she wouldn't forget under pressure. Her father's death date, the acquisition date of his company, her own birthday. 60 seconds. Behind the door, Lily was screaming now, full-throated terror, probably having a complete breakdown from the gunshots and explosions and chaos. Lily, baby, I need you to focus. Norah pressed her face against the wire mesh window. Can you see the door? There's a metal handle on your side. Can you reach it? But Lily was too far gone, rocking violently, her hands over her ears, eyes squeezed shut against the horror. 45 seconds. Norah looked around frantically. The room itself was concrete and steel, no weak points. The door was industrial grade. The window was. The window. She grabbed one of the battery-powered lanterns from the staging area and smashed it against the wire mesh. Once, twice, 3 times until her hands bled and the wire finally began to separate from its ancient frame. 30 seconds. She ripped the mesh free, then used a piece of it to break away the remaining glass. The opening was barely large enough, but it might work. Lily, come here, come to the window. The child couldn't hear her over her own screaming. 20 seconds. Norah made a decision that would either save Lily or get them both killed. She pulled out the small cloth napkin she always carried, a duplicate of the one that Lily clutched, and started folding it. The familiar motion, the specific creases, exactly the way she'd done it that first day. Lily, she held the folded napkin through the window into the child's line of sight. Look at Norah, safe space. Lily's eyes opened, focused, recognition flickered. Come get the safe space, baby, come to Norah. 10 seconds. Lily stood on shaking legs and moved toward the window, her eyes locked on the napkin like a lifeline. That's it, that's my brave girl, come on. 5 seconds. Lily reached the window. Norah grabbed her arms and started pulling her through, the child's small body scraping against jagged edges, both of them sobbing with terror and effort. 2 seconds. Norah yanked Lily free and ran, carrying the child, racing for the stairs as nothing happened. No explosion, no countdown, just silence and the echo of their footsteps. Norah made it to the ground floor, burst through the side door into daylight and kept running. Behind her, she could hear sirens, shouting, the organized chaos of law enforcement converging on the scene. She ran until her lungs burned, until Lily's weight became unbearable, until they reached a loading dock 2 blocks away where she finally collapsed, holding the child, both of them alive and together and safe. Norah safe, Lily whispered against her shoulder, the first words she'd spoken since the nightmare began. Yes, baby, Norah safe, always Norah safe. And as police cars surrounded the warehouse district, as Marcus Chin emerged with Maggie O'Connell in handcuffs, as Arthur Penhalagon's private helicopter touched down on a nearby helipad, Norah just held Lily and wept with relief. The trap had closed on the wrong person. But the story wasn't over yet. The interrogation room at the FBI field office in Lower Manhattan was designed to be intimidating. Gray walls, harsh lighting, a metal table bolted to the floor. But Norah had faced worse terrors in the past 6 hours than anything this sterile space could conjure. Lily sat beside her, refusing to let go of her hand, her other hand clutching both napkins now, the original and Norah's duplicate, folded together into a double tent of safety. The child hadn't spoken beyond that whispered Norah safe, but her grip said everything that words couldn't. Across the table, Special Agent Rebecca Morrison reviewed documents with the thorough precision of someone building an airtight case. She'd arrived at the warehouse with a team of federal agents, taken one look at the scene, and immediately shifted focus from victim rescue to criminal prosecution. So, Agent Morrison said, looking up from her files, Margaret Maggie O'Connell, also known as Isabella Thornbridge, also known as Natasha Volkov, also known as at least 4 other identities across 3 continents, wanted for wire fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, and now kidnapping and attempted murder. She slid a photograph across the table. This woman has been running cons for 8 years. High-level targets, usually wealthy men, always with an exit strategy before anyone catches on. You're lucky to be alive. What about Marcus? Norah asked. He said he was gathering evidence. Marcus Chen came to us 7 weeks ago. After you raised questions about medication tampering, he started his own investigation and discovered evidence of Ms. O'Connell's real identity. Rather than confront her directly, he contacted the FBI and agreed to work as an informant. Everything he helped her do after that was documented and supervised. Agent Morrison pulled up another document. The security footage she showed you, the video of you supposedly taking Lily at 11:47 p.m., was fabricated using deepfake technology. Very sophisticated, but Marcus ensured we had copies of the original files showing it was manufactured. Norah felt tears of relief and exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. So I'm not. You're not a suspect, Miss Kingsley. You're a witness. And given that you risked your life to save this child, Agent Morrison's expression softened slightly as she looked at Lily, I'd say you're considerably more than that. The door opened and Arthur Penhalagon entered like a force of nature, his legendary control visibly shattered. His hair was disheveled, his tie missing, his eyes red-rimmed and wild. When he saw Lily, he made a sound that was part sob, part prayer. Lily, oh God. Lily. The child's reaction was instantaneous and heartbreaking. She buried her face against Norah's shoulder, her small body going rigid with fear. Arthur stopped as if he'd hit a physical wall. Lily, baby, it's Daddy, you're safe now. But Lily just clutched Norah harder, humming that distressed sound that meant she was approaching overload. Agent Morrison stood. Mr. Penhalagon, perhaps we should give them a moment. She's my daughter, his voice cracked. I've been losing my mind for 6 hours, I thought I was sure. His eyes met Norah's and she saw the full weight of his guilt and horror. I accused you, I called the police on you, I believed. You believed what she wanted you to believe, Norah said quietly. That's what Maggie does. That's what she's built her entire criminal career on, finding people's weak points and exploiting them. My weak point was not trusting you. Arthur moved slowly closer, his attention on Lily. After everything you'd done for her, everything you'd proven, he couldn't finish. Agent Morrison's phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked up with grim satisfaction. They found the explosives, C4, professionally rigged on a dead man's switch. If O'Connell had been killed or incapacitated before entering her code, the entire 4th floor would have been destroyed. She wasn't bluffing. Norah felt cold despite the overheated room. How did she? Former boyfriend is an ATF agent, or was, until we arrested him an hour ago. He's been supplying her with equipment and classified information for 2 years. Agent Morrison shook her head. This was planned down to the smallest detail. O'Connell had contingencies for her contingencies. What was her endgame? Arthur asked. If the police had raided before. She had 4 different exit strategies, each dependent on how events unfolded. If you paid the ransom, she'd have disappeared with the money and Lily would have been found unharmed. If the police stormed the building, the explosives would have killed Lily and Miss Kingsley, making you think your daughter died because you involved law enforcement. If you come alone, which she anticipated you might, she had plans to kill you directly and blame it on Miss Kingsley. Agent Morrison's expression was stone. The only scenario she didn't fully account for was Miss Kingsley figuring out her location independently, and Marcus Chen's actual loyalty. Where is she now? Norah asked. Federal detention, maximum security. She's facing enough charges to put her away for life without parole, and that's before we add the attempted murder charges from this morning. Agent Morrison closed her file. She won't be hurting anyone else. But something was bothering Norah, a detail that didn't fit. The timer. She said 90 seconds, but nothing exploded. Why? Agent Morrison exchanged a look with a younger agent who'd been standing quietly by the door. That's complicated. Tell me. The timer was real, the explosives were real, but the trigger code, the agent hesitated. O'Connell never entered it. Marcus Chin caught up with her on the second floor. There was a struggle. She fought hard, professionals would say too hard, like she was trying to force him to kill her. And then? Then what? Then she just stopped, sat down on the stairs and started laughing. Said something about how it had all been so close, so perfectly planned, and she'd been undone by a waitress with a napkin and a cop with a conscience. Agent Morrison looked uncomfortable. She's been evaluated by our psychiatric team. They believe she may have been experiencing a psychotic break. The boundary between her various identities, between Isabella and Maggie and whoever she really was, it may have collapsed. So the explosion may never have been meant to happen. May have been a bluff to force Marcus to make an impossible choice, to inflict maximum psychological damage even in defeat. Agent Morrison shrugged. With someone like O'Connell, who's been living false identities for years, it's hard to know where the con ends and genuine mental illness begins. They talked for another hour, taking detailed statements, establishing timeline, building the case that would ensure Maggie O'Connell never saw freedom again. Throughout it all, Lily stayed pressed against Norah's side, occasionally making small sounds of distress when Arthur moved too close. Finally, Agent Morrison stood. I think we have what we need for now. Miss Kingsley, you're free to go. Mr. Penhalagon, we'll need you to remain available for additional questioning, but you're also free to leave. She paused at the door. For what it's worth, Miss Kingsley, what you did this morning was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Possibly both. But that little girl is alive because of you. When they were alone, just Arthur, Norah, and Lily in the harsh fluorescent light, the weight of everything that had happened finally settled. I don't know how to apologize, Arthur said quietly, for not believing you, for choosing to trust Isabella over you, for, his voice broke, for letting my daughter suffer because I was too blind to see what was right in front of me. You were being manipulated by a professional. That's not an excuse. I built an empire by reading people, by identifying threats, by protecting what's mine, and I failed at the only thing that actually mattered. He looked at Lily, still clinging to Norah. She won't even look at me. She's traumatized. She watched armed people fight. She heard gunshots. She thought she was going to die. Norah stroked Lily's hair gently. She needs time to feel safe again. With you. With people she trusts. Arthur moved slowly to crouch in front of them, bringing himself to Lily's eye level without forcing contact. Lily Bird, he said softly, using his old nickname for her. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you better. I should have seen that Isabella was. He stopped, recognizing that his daughter couldn't process this level of adult complexity right now. Instead, he did something Norah had never seen him do. He started humming. A simple melody, one that Lily's mother had apparently sung to her as a baby. Norah had heard Lily hum it sometimes when she was self-soothing. Lily's grip on Norah loosened slightly. She turned her head just enough to see her father, her eyes wary but no longer terrified. That's right, sweet girl, Daddy's here. Norah's here, you're safe. He kept humming, patient and steady, until Lily finally, tentatively, reached one small hand toward him. Arthur took it like he was holding the most precious thing in the world, tears streaming openly down his face. They sat like that for a long time, the three of them connected, rebuilding trust one careful moment at a time. 5 years later, the Manhattan brownstone that Arthur had purchased, for space and privacy and normal neighborhoods, was decorated with the comfortable chaos of a home actually lived in. Lily's art projects covered the refrigerator. Family photos lined the hallways. The living room held the careful balance of sensory-friendly design and actual warmth. Norah came downstairs to find her daughter, legally adopted for 4 years now, but hers in every way that mattered long before that, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop, her expression intense with concentration. What are you working on? Norah asked, setting down coffee for herself and hot chocolate for Lily. My application essay for the MIT summer program. Lily's voice was clear and confident, nothing like the nonverbal child of 5 years ago. They want to know about a challenge I've overcome and how it shaped my goals. What are you writing about? Lily looked up, and Norah saw the wisdom in those eyes, the hard-earned knowledge of someone who'd survived something terrible and chosen to grow from it. About the napkin. The napkin. That first day at Aurelio's, when everything was too loud and too bright and I couldn't breathe, and you folded that napkin into a tent, a safe space. Lily smiled. That's what I want to do with technology. create safe spaces for neurodivergent people, design interfaces and environments and systems that don't require us to pretend to be neurotypical. I want to build tents. Norah felt her throat tighten with pride. That's beautiful, Lily. I'm also writing about how you taught me that being helped isn't the same as being helpless, that needing support doesn't mean being weak. Lily's expression grew more serious. And about the warehouse, about how being scared and being brave can exist at the same time. They didn't talk about the warehouse often. Lily had been in therapy for years, processing the trauma, learning to integrate it into her story without letting it define her. But she remembered. She understood what had been at stake. Arthur appeared in the doorway. Dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, a far cry from the armored suits he used to hide behind. "Morning, family," he kissed Norah, then ruffled Lily's hair in a gesture she actually tolerated now. "Big day, you ready?" "Ready," Lily confirmed. Today was the press conference. 5 years of investigation, prosecution, and legal battles had finally culminated in the complete dismantling of Maggie O'Connell's criminal network. But more than that, Arthur had used his resources and influence to establish a foundation for victims of financial fraud, specifically targeting cases like what had happened to the O'Connell family 12 years ago. "I still think it's weird that you're honoring the people who tried to kill us," Lily said, echoing a conversation they'd had many times. "We're not honoring what Maggie became," Arthur explained patiently. "We're acknowledging that her parents were victims of a broken system, that my company's acquisition of Barrett Pharmaceuticals, while legal, was ethically questionable, that if I'd done things differently back then, maybe she still would have become a criminal," Norah interjected gently. "She made choices, Arthur, bad choices. You can acknowledge your past mistakes without taking responsibility for her actions." "I know, but I can also work to make sure those mistakes don't happen to others." He looked at his wife, his daughter, his chosen family. "That's what matters now, not what I built before but what we're building together." The press conference was held at the Penhaligon Foundation headquarters, a building Arthur had designed specifically to be sensory-friendly, with quiet rooms, adjustable lighting, and multiple exit strategies for people who became overwhelmed. It was his apology and his promise, made physical. Norah stood backstage with Lily, watching Arthur address the assembled reporters. "5 years ago," Arthur said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd earned their moral standing through suffering and growth, "I almost lost everything that matters because I valued image over truth, control over connection, and power over understanding. My daughter was kidnapped by someone who had every reason to hate me, and in many ways I had earned that hate." The crowd stirred, surprised by his bluntness. Margaret O'Connell's parents were destroyed by business practices that, while legal, prioritized profit over people. I didn't pull the trigger that killed her father, but I helped create the circumstances that led to his despair. Today, I'm announcing a $500 million foundation dedicated to supporting families affected by corporate acquisitions, providing legal resources, financial counseling, and mental health services to prevent other tragedies. He paused, his eyes finding Norah and Lily in the wings. "But more importantly, I want to talk about the woman who saved my daughter's life, not once but every single day. Norah Kingsley was a waitress when we met. She had no credentials, no formal training, no reason to believe she belonged in my world. But she had something far more valuable. She understood that vulnerability isn't weakness, that different isn't broken, and that the most profound strength is the courage to be kind when kindness isn't rewarded." Norah felt Lily squeeze her hand. "Today, Norah is my wife, Lily's legal mother, and the director of the Foundation's neurodiversity initiatives. She's helped us develop programs that serve thousands of families. But more than that, she taught me that power isn't about control, it's about lifting others up. That money means nothing if you don't know what matters, that the most important lessons come from the people society overlooks." He stepped back from the podium and gestured toward the wings. "Norah, Lily, will you join me?" They walked out together, the waitress and the little girl who'd both been dismissed, underestimated, and ultimately proven to be the strongest people in the story. The cameras flashed. The reporters shouted questions. But in that moment, Norah was aware only of the two people beside her, her husband who'd learned to value heart over empire, and her daughter who'd survived a nightmare and chosen to become someone who prevented nightmares for others. During the Q&A, a reporter asked Lily, "What would you say to other kids who are different, who feel like they don't fit in?" Lily considered for a moment, then smiled. "I'd tell them to find their person. Find someone who doesn't try to fix you or change you but who helps you build a safe space in the middle of chaos. And then when you're strong enough, help someone else build theirs. That's how we make the whole world safer, one napkin tent at a time." The crowd erupted in applause. Later, at home, after the press conference had ended, and the reporters had filed their stories, and the social media had exploded with praise and criticism, and all the noise that accompanied public vulnerability, the three of them sat in the living room in comfortable silence. "Do you ever think about her?" Lily asked suddenly. "About Maggie?" Norah knew she meant, "Do you hate her? Do you wish she'd died? Do you understand why she became what she became?" "Yes," Norah answered honestly. "I think about how pain can either break you open or close you down. How she chose cruelty where she could have chosen healing. How she spent years becoming a perfect lie instead of dealing with an imperfect truth." "I feel sorry for her," Lily said quietly. "Is that weird, to feel sorry for someone who tried to kill us?" "It's not weird. It's human." Arthur pulled his daughter close. "Maggie O'Connell was a victim long before she became a villain. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it explains how someone can hurt so badly that hurting others feels like justice." "The therapist says that understanding isn't the same as forgiving," Lily said. "That I can acknowledge her pain without excusing her choices." "Your therapist is right." They sat together, processing, healing, growing. Outside, Manhattan hummed with its endless activity. But inside, in this brownstone built on trust and patience and unconditional love, there was only peace. Norah looked at the two people she'd somehow been lucky enough to find in the chaos of one terrible, beautiful day 5 years ago. She thought about the waitress she'd been, broke, exhausted, invisible to everyone who mattered. She thought about the little girl who couldn't communicate her needs to a world that wouldn't listen. She thought about the billionaire who'd built walls so high he'd forgotten how to feel. And she thought about how all of them had been broken. And how together they'd become whole. "I love you both," she said simply. "We know," Arthur replied, kissing her temple. "You tell us every day, usually while folding napkins." Lily laughed, that clear, joyful sound that Norah had once thought she'd never hear. "Norah's safe," she said, the old phrase now a term of endearment rather than desperate need. "Always," Norah promised, "always safe." And she meant it. Not safe from all pain, or all challenge, or all difficulty. But safe in the way that actually matters. Safe to be yourself, safe to be imperfect, safe to need help and give help and build something real from the broken pieces of what came before. That night, Norah folded a napkin into a tent, an old habit she'd never broken, and left it on Lily's nightstand. A reminder. A promise. A symbol of everything they'd survived, and everything they'd built. And in the morning, when Lily came downstairs, she'd folded her own napkin and left it on Norah's coffee mug. A conversation without words. A family without blood. A love that had started with the simplest act of kindness and grown into something that would last forever. The end of Maggie O'Connell's revenge. The beginning of healing. The triumph of understanding over hate. And the proof that sometimes, the most powerful thing in the world isn't money or control or even justice. It's just knowing how to make someone feel safe. One napkin tent at a time. What would you have done if you'd been accused of kidnapping the child you'd sworn to protect? If everything you'd built, every moment of trust, every small victory, every whispered safe, was ripped away in an instant by lies and manipulation? This story should make your blood boil. It should remind you that evil doesn't always come with a warning label. Sometimes it comes dressed in elegance and speaks with cultured words and knows exactly how to exploit your weaknesses. Maggie O'Connell almost destroyed an entire family because she weaponized grief and greed and convinced everyone that the hero was the villain. But it should also restore your faith, because Norah didn't have power, she didn't have money, she didn't have credentials or connections or any of the things society tells us we need to matter. All she had was love, unconditional, protective, fierce love, and that was enough. That was more than enough. If this story made you feel something, rage at the injustice, hope at the triumph, relief at the redemption, then I need you to do something for me right now. Smash that like button. Not just tap it, smash it. Show the algorithm that stories about courage and compassion and chosen family matter more than clickbait and ragebait and manufactured outrage. Drop a comment below. Tell me, justice served if you believe that Maggie got what she deserved. Or tell me about a time when someone underestimated you, dismissed you, tried to make you small, and you proved them devastatingly wrong. I read every single comment. Your stories matter. Your voice matters. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Because I'm done with the algorithm deciding what content gets seen. I'm done with stories about greed and cruelty, and the powerful crushing the vulnerable getting all the attention while stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things get buried. We're building something here. A community of people who believe that kindness isn't weakness, that being different isn't being broken, and that the most overlooked person in the room might just be holding everything together. Every week, I bring you stories like this. Real people, impossible situations, and the courage to do what's right even when the world says you're wrong. Join us, be part of this movement, because the next story might be about someone you know. It might be about someone you love. Hell, it might be about you, the moment you stood up, spoke out, and refused to let injustice win. Don't let this be just another video you watch and forget. Let it be the moment you decided to be part of something bigger. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because Norah was just a waitress with a napkin. And she changed everything. What will you do with your napkin? Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next story. And remember, never underestimate the person society overlooks. They might be saving the world, one small act of courage at a time. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available.